Okay, so we'll go right ahead and start. Thanks for coming for this. My name is Ken Whitaker, and I've been using Xojo for 8, 10 years, something like that. I just love the company and love the people and love the product. And I have a consulting freelance company called Leading Software Maniacs. We do agile leadership consulting throughout the country. So if there's a concert I want to see in a city, I call the local PMI office and see if they want someone to come and present that night. And it works out real good. Anyways, so this is basically a quick start on a Xojo app development thing. It's both for Windows as well as for macOS, so it's a desktop tutorial. And it's a very simple one, so for all of you all here, this is embarrassing. You're actually here because you're going to know this stuff left and right. But one of the things that I ended up wanting to figure out is how to build a consistent desktop app single source environment. And I really wasn't sure how best to go about doing it. And this would be for obviously Windows at the top and Mac OS on the bottom. So this whole presentation will go for about 30 minutes, and you all see the handout. For simplicity, I have installed everything on the desktop on both environments under a folder called KNUDI temp, as you can see there. So this is what we're going to cover. First thing is deciding on the approach. The next one is actually a quick review of how to design the installer, and then making the code changes in your app, as well as building and testing the installer. So that's what the contents are. The one thing I wanted to do was to make sure that I could not only create an environment that would install the app, but would also install properly and set up your app's data. And that's the part I was having some trouble with, because all apps need data. So where do you put it? How do you get it into the app package, the whole bit? So I mentioned the newsletter. It's a little bit different of a handout in a newspaper format, because this was supposed to be presented in 2020 before COVID, and it happened to be here in Nashville too. And so I did this. I got to put a few ads in there and stuff, and I actually have an online version that has the local like espresso shops that I contacted here in Nashville. And so I've since visited them since we've been here, so that's been a lot of fun. So the first topic I wanted to discuss is deciding on the approach. And this is the first subheading in the newspaper. So when I was working in Windows years and years back, installation was pretty standard. You scripted an installer that you would include with your app, and the installer would copy your app to the program files on the x86 folder, and then copy your app's default data somewhere else, usually in roaming or documents or something. And then in Mac OS, the world changed a little bit, because there the app is copied to the applications folder, and usually that's it. And then the app, when it runs, ends up deciding, oh, there's no data, I'll move it there. And those are the two different environments that I was struggling with. And I wasn't sure how to best do it, but I kind of like the Mac way more. It seemed to be a lot simpler and easier, especially when you have to eventually uninstall the app, because the uninstaller needs to find out where all that data is, and it just seems like the Mac way was a whole lot simpler. When I would talk to Xojo people, you know, like Paul, this is what he would say: to just zip them up and throw it out there. Or, you know, and I'm left there wanting to drink or something, because I'm no better off than before. Not you personally, but it was you. Okay. Yeah, so let's go over what I did wrong. my original way of installing an app on Windows was, of course, to use JR softwares like NO Setup, which most of you all probably know. And it's free. You can donate to it. It just plain works. And that's cool. What it does is you set it up by identifying your app information, any legal like information you want to display to the customer. You also identify where your app's files and folders are, and then you create this script, and you install it with what they produce. What they build is what they call the app installer, and JR software is just really great stuff. And then they recently, well, I guess several years ago, came up with a way to actually, with a wizard to help you create all that stuff, and it's very nice. Everything goes into the program files. The data will be automatically installed and copied into the app data roaming folder based on your application's name. And of course, this is what the opening screen will look like. You all have seen this. Mac, I couldn't find a real good solution. They were either expensive or they weren't supported anymore. So it was just kind of funny looking for something. So the app is expected to be in a DMG format. And I was trying to do it the Windows way by also setting up all the app's data into the app installer package and building it to create the app installer. One I found was called MindVision, and it's called FileStorm. Have any of you heard of that? Yeah, well, that's the problem. They've been around. There are some other solutions, and they tend to be extremely expensive. And I didn't want to pay a whole lot for an installer. And so what it did was you would create it would ask you a bunch of questions where all your files are and all that kind of stuff, and it would assume the locations where your app would be installed to. And it's either in the applications folder for the app or the library application support and your company name and the app subfolder, which is pretty cool. The problem was it not only wasn't supported anymore, it has a Windows-like user interface, which I thought was cool, but changing and replacing their product name was pretty much impossible without butchering the product. So that was a surprise. And you could actually buy a professional license and the number of dollars similar to what you would pay for Install Shield, which is a lot of money per application, if you all have looked at that. And that was a problem. It was no longer supported, like I mentioned, and the flow just didn't quite make sense to a Mac user. So those are the mistakes that I was making. So I want to go over very quickly what the goals of a common installer are. And what I wanted was a unified installer that could use the same generalized approach for both Windows and macOS. I didn't want to have special Xojo code for either platform at all, so I wanted to have the same. I thank goodness for Xojo's build automation, because that saved the day for what I was interested in doing, especially when you're trying to build to include your files and folders that go along with the app. So if those of you that don't know anything much about build automation, please investigate it. It's just superb. I wanted modular startup code that detects as well as auto-loads the app data the first time the app runs. So when the app runs, it looks out to see, okay, where's my data? Whoops, there isn't any there, and then I'll copy it right from the app package. And that's generally what I wanted. And the installer tool must be inexpensive, if not free, if that's possible. So, things we're not going to cover in this tutorial are apps, code signing, special requirements for App Store submission. That's the question I asked Jeff this morning. No, I asked you, Paul, sorry. And extensive status logging, which I normally include with all of my app development. But I didn't in this one. Also, updating of app preferences. For example, where you run your app and with a certain serial number or code, it would actually select the edition of the app, meaning you've paid for more features and they're automatically there. So the tutorial I'm showing doesn't include that. For other apps that I have built, I have done that. And so this is easily extensible. This particular tutorial is also available for download, not only with what you all are setting up with this, with the Xojo website, or I guess you guys are going to make all of our files available. But I also have all the videos associated with this course available. So I'll show you at the end how to get to that. This is the development environment that I've been working on. I'm primarily a Mac guy now. I didn't used to be, but I certainly have become that. So I develop on the Mac host. I move files either through the cloud or through a USB drive and test under a Mac laptop or Windows laptop, or of course the network you can use. And I also do, so that's basically how I like arrange this. I wanted to ask, the Xojo support for universal binaries, that's going to continue, right, for Mac? Yeah. That's what I was wondering, if they're going to end up deciding. Try to sell your Mac like Intel to somebody on Craigslist these days. I mean, ain't going to happen. So anyways, these are the, I consistently build and test under the same folder name on the desktop, KNUDI temp. And then I back up through versioning up on the Mac host. And this is how, at least my work environment has been. So, lessons learned. I tried to simplify the overall development by actually building and working on the cloud my desktop apps under Dropbox. And I found that Xojo, when you're trying to build and test on the cloud under something like Dropbox, if that's where your Xojo project is, I found things not working very, very well. And I learned that the hard way. Also, other products like Adobe, like InDesign, and other products have that similar fate because they're creating temporary files, time, date stamping, or whatever, and Dropbox may not be operating in real time, and then all of a sudden you're screwed up. Or what's worse is you have files that are become corrupted. So that's why I've adopted that other kind of archaic way of building and testing. Windows may uncompress macOS app contents, and if you move, for example, through exFAT, you move files from your Mac over to Windows and then move them back. Your .app files that may have been in that payload that are used for Mac, once it gets onto exFAT and you fool around over there on Windows and bring it back, all of a sudden it's not a single file, it's actually been uncompressed. And now you have a folder with the .app and back on the Mac. So I just thought I'd bring, these are things that I ran into. Maybe there's more like elegant ways of avoiding this, but I sure didn't. So, okay, the tools that I use are real simple. Xojo, of course. And what I'm going to show you with a brief demo is what I've done with Xojo 2022 R2. JR Software, they're the guys that create the Windows installer tool, and Aurelium's DMG Canvas. I love these guys. It is a great installer tool for the Mac. It's not free, so if you've got $30 to spare, that's your cost to use their installer tool. So in designing the installer, the approach that I took was to, when I create the app, I created obviously one app for Windows and for macOS, and then under Xojo, and then what I will do is I will build the app, and then to create an app package, and then use the installers on the Apple side. That's DNG Canvas. On the Windows side, it's the setup tool to create the a app installer package that gets installed to the user. So this is what the app will do. I actually have a test app that I'm using, and what the test app will do is, I hope you can see that, but it's a simple user interface. The only thing it will do is, after it's installed, I will actually display a message, basically a debug message that indicates, in this case, there was no data files found, and we created them in the app. And then the same thing on Windows. So you can see, using the same single Xojo source code, the apps look very similar. And I'm real happy with the way it turned out. All I needed to do was to create a Xojo class that will detect and move over the data files the app needs the first time it runs. And those are the class names over there. I call it CLS UDI, and those are the methods. There's 10 methods, not including the constructor, and that's it. It's all 64-bit. I didn't even bother with the 32-bit testing. I also backported this to other apps I've been developing, and everything has worked fine consistently. So I've been really happy with it. The Espresso iVersionIt is an interesting tool. It's a Git type of version management software tool that's designed for people that aren't technical. I tried to write a book that I was hoping to sell on like Amazon of how to make Git easy for creatives. After 64 pages, I gave up because I figured it isn't going to fly no matter how I pretty it up. Anyways, so using build automation, since data is a critical part, Xojo's build automation gathers that data for you. And the way that I package up, well, package is the wrong word, but the way I organize of the data that the app needs is as either individual files or folders consisting of other subfolders or files. And that gives me a little bit more flexibility than just assuming everything goes in a folder. So this is a basic picture of the app that I'm going to be showing you. It's basically a test app showing how all this works. It's KNUDI. It's a Xojo project that includes a folder with the code, the project code, and another peer folder that has all the installation data, the files that the app needs to run. And then I have another folder that has the build installers in it, both for macOS and the other for Windows. So the first thing I'll do is build the project on the left, move over the files that Xojo builds, which I could script it, of course, but then move that over to the build installer and then run the build installer tools to create the final app package. And that's it. So I guess I should have shown that a moment ago. All right. Again, that is the way that the folders are designed. Any questions about that? Okay. I'll show it to you in Xojo in just a second. So there's 7 data folders that this app uses and 1 file that's a readme.txt. That's all that the app needs in this case. Again, I found no build restrictions with Xojo's build automation, so it can be as many as you want. Okay. And there's that readme.txt. So those are the folders that I'm going to be using. Okay, you can move now. Okay, and under, of course, those are the those are the two export folders that are built by Xojo when I build the app. So the app package, I just wanted to show this as a combination of the app libraries that go along that are packaged up by Xojo when it builds the app, and then the app data that I've been talking about that this particular app, KNUDI, uses. That whole thing is what I'm calling an app package. And that's what the installer will use to create the final thing that is installed on a user's system. Okay, the automatic file and folder copying is used with Xojo's build automation, which is you do the insert build step and then the copy files. That's all you do, and you select the files like so. You name the build automation. In this case, I call it data load for Mac. And, I wanted to show you on the left, you can see that. So those are 3 of the 6 folders that I'm going to be using. Logs, which is basically a folder for logs when the app runs. Preferences, which includes the settings that the app uses, such as colors and maybe like initial values that the app's going to use. Resources, which tends to be the icons as well as language files and things like that. And then here they are. These are examples. In fact, this is straight out of the Xojo like IDE. The files, the one README file, and the other folders are the 7 folders that are used, that include all of the data that's going to be used by the app. And that's it. And then I copy that, I move that, I add the build icon under macOS, and again I named it data load for Mac. I copied that exact same build script down to Windows, renamed it data load for Win, and like enabled the build gear, and we're all set to go. That's all you have to do. So where does all this stuff go? Okay, it's up to you where you want to put them, but I like doing it a certain way, is that the app data, I didn't use your naming conventions that Xojo has, where you can put in something with that kind of syntax. I used a very simple approach, is that on Mac OS, the app will go under applications, and all of the app data will go under the user's library application support folder, and a company name or a generic folder, in this case like LSM_test, and then the app name KNUDI. And that's kind of where it goes. Under Windows, it's very similar. The app data, well, the app should have said, okay, program files KNUDI, and under the app data folder, it's under roaming with the same sort of company name or product family name folder, and then the subfolder that's associated with the name of the app. Okay. And where is this stored? Well, on the Mac, the data is embedded within the app container. And this is what Xojo produces. And this is where, that's all the files that are there. And then on Windows, it's outside the exe program in its own set of files. This is how Xojo packages it. It seems to be pretty straightforward. I use in real time, when the app runs, the first thing it does in the open event handler is it will basically say, okay, give me the special folder .get resource, and the file name or the folder name, depending on what those data resources. And I do that for each of them. That gives me the folder item, and then I copy them on out to where the destination is supposed to be. And again, that's the very first thing the app will do when it runs on that platform. And then it determines where to put it based on a similar call, special folder.application data. Xojo has made it extremely easy for app developers to get data that has been packaged up with the app, as well as where to put it. That's really good. Okay, let's make the coding changes in the app. And the default class is a constructor where you identify the name of the company or the product group and then the product's name. In this case, the product name would be KNUDI. And then the methods, there's 11 of them, including that constructor. But you instantiate it just like that, pretty simple, where you use that constructor to create an object. I call them decider methods. We have two. One is when the app runs, it will say, okay, does the app support folder exist? And then if it doesn't, create the app support folder. Both return these results, and if there was a negative response, it would say, oops, it tried to create the app's data, but it couldn't for some reason. There's read-only or something's wrong. If the return value is 0, what this means is the app's data support folders are already there. You don't need to do anything. You've already done this. In other words, you've already run the app once. It returns a value of 1 if the company subfolder doesn't exist, and it will return a 2 if the company subfolder or the product category folder exists, but the product itself, its own data doesn't. So you have a little bit of flexibility to determine what you want to do. And again, all of these methods are in the download that will be made available. Setter modes is, okay, you load the file or you load the folder, which basically gets the app's default data and copies it to the user's destination. And there are 7 data folders in this example in this test, and both return the same, and all these two calls return the similar result. Similar values. And so with this, you can determine if the app running has all of its data there. And that's kind of it. Pretty simple. And then to actually copy all that data over, you do a load file or a load folder. You can also determine what the absolute path name is for those two, for the file, for the files on the user system. And then I do have some helper methods that are used internally by the other classes, which you can use too, but they are also helpful, especially when you're debugging your code. One is the actual method that copies from your app's file or your folder data over to the destination. So this actually does the copy of the contents. This returns the path delimiter. Obviously, that's different between Mac and Windows. Mac, it's a /. Windows, it's a \. That's all that is. Get last destination absolute path, where whatever you last copied, if you want to know where did that actually go, that's what you do to call this. And then normalizing it basically makes sure that the path is a fully formed path the correct way. But these are just used internally. It's not a big deal. Okay, how to load the app's data. Okay, this is where the magic is. is that this is what is the only code you're really going to need in your open event handler. So this is what you would do. If the app's working data folder exists, then you shouldn't have to do anything. Again, I'm just saying once again where those destination folders are. I know it's repetitive, but it's easy to forget. Okay, so this is what you do to find out if the app data exists on the user system. It's simple. At the top, you're constructing the app data instance, and then you do a if statement. Does the app support folder exist? Yes or no? And then you have whatever code is down below. A result of 0 means the app working folder already exists. You shouldn't have to do anything. And then what you can do, you can create that folder, and then you actually load that folder or file, whichever ones you want to do. And that's the code. I'm going to show you the code in just a second. And this example just shows how the code necessary to move over the one file. Okay. So let's go through the demos real quick. Okay, desktop. Can you all see that? Okay. Desktop. There is where the test folder is, and then I'm going to show you the code. Okay, here's the open. Hopefully you all can see that. So this is the same code I showed you just a moment ago, and this is kind of it. This is some additional support code, but that's all you need. This is the class that handles all of those, the determining if code needs to be copied. And that's all that you use right there, where you actually specify each of those files or folders that are in your app package to be moved. So what we're going to do is we're going to build it, and this should be under Xojo Release 2, 2022. And this should be faster with R3. All right. Okay. Here we go. So we have both the Windows build and OS X. So there's the app. Again, oh, I need to show you something. Sorry. Whoa. This is, when I built it, there's the build. There is the build automation, where it actually includes, when Xojo builds, all those files that are over there. And I'll show you those files real quick. Here they are. There's the README, there's the KNUDI, these three, logs, preferences, resources, and here's the some other test documents that I went ahead and put in there just to make sure that it all worked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the resultant build. Oops, sorry. Okay, here we go. Build. I'm going to take the OS X. There's the app we just built. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to move it over to that peer folder, which has the installer app. And there is where I put the latest app. I'll put it right there. Now this is DMG Canvas, the installer for the Mac. Whoops, here it is on the screen. Okay. Do any of you use DMG? So you're familiar with it. Any troubles with it? Yeah, they've had a few missteps on some of the updates that, especially when you're fooling around with loading the application, be really careful with that. There's a README on their app with their tool that shows you how exactly to create this guy, because it used to be somewhat problematic if you dragged versus control dragged the application folder. So be real careful with that. But so you can see how, I mean, the user interface building of this is pretty tremendous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build it. And it's putting it into, I like having a master folder and a like exports folder. So I'm going to put it in there. It's going to build it. Hopefully this will work. Good. Okay. Here we go. And this is the installation. There it is. Copy it. Okay, it's there. So the install is done. It's pretty easy, as you can see. I'm going to show you all something that, so if I go into applications, my KNUDI test app, it's there. I'm going to get rid of it. Oh, what did I do that for? I just installed it. Okay, there we go. It's there. And then I'm going to look at application support. This is where the data files are. And I have here LSM test. This is the app that we're going to test. I'm just going to get rid of all that stuff. So they're gone. So the first time I'm going to run this test app, let me bring up another window here. There it is, it's installed. I'm going to run it. And it comes on the wrong screen. There it is. It says application support data was loaded after the company subfolder LSM test and its product subfolder was created. So if I look back at application support, remember I got rid of that. LSM underscore test and KNUDI, there's all my files. So it's all there. Now you're probably wondering, well, okay, they're there. Are they really? I mean, what's the big deal? Well, the readme.txt includes one line of text, which happens to be what I use in my test app. So I'm actually reading that from the readme.txt file and replacing the title on this screen, on this app. So it's working. Now, if I quit, obviously the test files are all there. If I run that again, this time we'll get a different message because it returned a value of 1 instead of 0. There we go. Application support data already present, no data was loaded. So it determines that, okay, I don't need to load it in anymore. Pretty simple. What I'm going to do this time, I'm going to leave this folder, but get rid of this specific app subfolder, just get rid of it. I'm going to run the app again. This time, it says the application data was loaded below after the product subfolder KNUDI was created. And if I go back here and look, it left this company or product group folder alone, but it just loaded in this app's data, and that's all it had to do. So now it's all up and running. So if I do the same thing under Windows. I'm not going to copy the file over, but you can pretend that I did. Here we go. Okay. Let's bring up, I'm going to bring it over here. Okay, this is under Windows. If I look under Desktop, like where we would be before, I do have a folder, KNUDI, and I've got my project code, and there it is. I'm going to copy that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go under Build Installer. And this is with the NO setup code. I already have a script. I put the latest app, and there it is, KNUDI. And now if I run the script, which is JR software stuff, which is different than DMG Canvas, is completely interactive. JR software, like NO setup, requires a script. And if we build this, and as you can see, I'm copying over those files, Xojo's files and the data files over. That's what this section's for. Everything else is pretty much plain. If I go under Build and compile, this installer, off we go. See, it's running a little slow. And this is building the Windows equivalent installation. I guess that should be it. Okay. And if I look at roaming, there is no LSM underscore test at all. So now, oops, if I run what JR Software created with their install, here we go, I'm going to bring it over. Looks somewhat similar, it's the same text. And then we do an install. I'm going to create a desktop shortcut. And I'm going to go right ahead, I guess, and launch it. This is that same Xojo app with a similar message saying that it created both of those folders, those data folders. And if I go back and look at that, roaming LSM underscore test, KNUDI, there it is. They're the same file. So if I go ahead and let's say get rid of the apps data and left the company name folder alone, and rerun, well, I thought it would have been there. Program files. Oh, come on. Let's see. Hold on. All right. Here we go. Okay, if I rerun the app, lo and behold, it determined that the only thing it needed to reload was the data and that in the apps folder. So that was basically it. So you see the same Xojo source code is used for both Mac and for Windows. We have to use two different installers, but all in all, the whole logic is the same, using one class in your like open statement. And that's what's available under the download. So okay. So to get the project, again, I do have available the videos for all those steps. There's no license to use the class at all. If you want to use it or expand it, it's up to you, no problem. And it works for all the versions of Xojo over the past few years, and it should have been updated to R2, which works. And I also made the videos available on my site. So if you all want to go up there and look at that, you can get it off of the Xojo Workshops folder web page. And on it, you'll see the newspaper. And down below, there's a little letter O, which gives you a secret access where you don't have to pay for it or fool around with it. And you can download it, view the course, the videos from that point on, and download all the files. And that's the access code to view it. I use a like LMS that's very inexpensive from TechSmith. They're the Snagit Camtasia guys. And that's what that is. So it has all of the lessons that I just walked you all through. And that's it. And there's the download right there off of that page. So thanks. That's all. Any questions? Oh, really? Okay, good. Looks like I may have chosen the right ones then. Okay, good. Yes? No, sorry. Someone else can.
You know what you can do? You can just zip it up.
All right. Thanks. Okay, well, that's all that I've gotten. Thank you.